we'll try to stay in shape. Just wanted to show you a few things. So the subject in general is components of an aquaponics system, and we've already introduced a lot of those. You've seen some here in this system, in our 7 different aquaponics systems that we have here. And I thought I'd show you a few that from some projects that we've been involved in, and then talk a little bit about different components. Again, we've introduced the subject already. By components, I mean the different parts of an aquaponics system: the fish tanks, the grow beds, the pumps, the clarifiers, that subject in general. And I'm not going to do an exhaustive, in-depth study of all of that, but we'll talk about some of those things. And so any questions that you have that come up out of that will be good. And Cindy and Vernon and others can help me, Jeff, with help me remember all the things I forget. What's that? Oh, okay. So here's a little, I know you guys are making drawings and things. This is a little drawing I did just the other day for I was laying out the system over there on the fence that's not complete yet. And I was just using this to figure out, so it's a side view, obviously, and using this to help me figure out my relative height of my systems, right? So this, can you see this pointer up there? Yeah. So this is a fish tank. William, we already talked about this. Here's the air pump, or water pump, I'm sorry. And we're pumping, so a fish tank is a low point. This is the high point of the system. And we're pumping up into that, which is what is going to be a media-filled double tray system. We'll talk a lot more detail about this. In fact, I'm hoping most of you are going to help me build that thing during our class.
Terry, can I throw something in?
Yeah.
One of the things, he has the tank close to the bed, so there aren't very many elbows.
Yeah.
Whenever water goes through an elbow, it has more resistance, and it's harder on the pump.
Yeah. That's one way to do it. So this isn't a detail of the plumbing. It's just obviously just an overview of the height differences and how the water's going to flow. These 2 beds are going to overflow via a siphon that you're going to make today, I hope, or tomorrow, into these 2 trays that are a raft type of water-filled trays. And then those are going to overflow via the standpipe down to here. So you can see where this helped me to figure out where these trays are going to be relative to the height of this fish tank, because the water has to get over right here. I could have gone through the side of this fish tank and put the water in here, but that's not what I'm going to do in this one. So I needed this height here, or at least the height of the water here, which is going to be about at the top of that standpipe right there. That at least had to be higher than this level, right? Because it needed to flow by gravity back into here. And like Jeff said earlier, and we'll talk a lot more about this, but water will flow uphill if it has water from a higher level pushing it. And in this case, this water is going to flow here. This could be level, but it's going to flow uphill here. And the only reason it's able to do that is because this column of water is deeper and higher. So there's more pressure from this column of water than there is on the column of water that's going to be here. So this column is going to push this water uphill and back into the fish tank and complete the circuit. Okay, so enough of that.
That's awesome. John says it's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
So that one had immediate.
If my opinion's worth anything.
Deep water.
Uh-huh.
So
Yep.
that's both of them.
Yeah.
Why are you doing that
Uh,
that way?
That's a great question. The advantage of this system is that we will have a ton of biofiltration.
Yes.
The media bed is going to not only be a grow bed, it's also an excellent biofilter or a bioconverter, if you want to call it that. It's going to be the place where all those beneficial bacteria live, because I forget the figures, but it's pretty remarkable how much surface area, like Vernon was saying, that the rock has. If you spread it all out, gravel like this especially, or the lava rock with all the little pits and holes in it, has a tremendous amount of surface area, and that equates to places where these beneficial bacteria can take residence and then be there ready to convert the ammonia from the fish into nitrate fertilizer.
So if you've got the fish in that tank over there, these two other,
This is the fish tank.
yeah, and these two other blue tanks that you've got over on the right-hand side here, you're going to put rafts in there, are you?
Yeah, the rafts either floating on top, or like William and I talked about, just put a piece of plywood with holes in it over the top of it and suspend the net pots that way. You could also have a wire that was suspended over there on some kind of frame and the right size. And we've seen that done, and that some places maybe wire would be available where the other materials wouldn't be. So, a real economical, easy way to do it. We're gonna, in fact, Cindy has done that already on the other side of the Aquaponics system there that has the blue foam on one side. The other side is wire that she has wrapped with plastic. And so the net pots are going to fit through the plastic and the wire and fit in there. So it's kind of just another way to do it.
There's no air pump in this, no aeration.
Correct. There is not. There's nothing there. And as it's configured, it would probably need an aerator pump, something with air stones to aerate the water.
Where would be the optimum place, in the fish tank for that?
Yeah, probably. You know, it wouldn't have to be, but yeah, that'd be the most logical place for it. Your fish are probably going to be the most sensitive to oxygen, dissolved oxygen in the water. So that's typically where you put it. People also put air stones and air pumps in grow beds in the deep water rafts, usually as a supplement to aerate the roots and aerate that whole zone really well.
Can you over-aerate?
Not that I know of.
Yeah.
So the water is only going to take as much, get up to kind of a saturation level, and that's dependent on temperature. Yeah, colder water holds more oxygen, more dissolved oxygen. But it's an interesting question because this system originally was designed by and installed by a company that had a way of kind of super saturating the water with oxygen. They had some specialized equipment that they since pulled out of here and found because they found a medical application for it. So I guess you can maybe super saturate the water with oxygen, but it was beneficial. So maybe the answer to your question is at least not.
Isn't there an upper limit to how much oxygen can be in water?
Yeah, I think so.
And what is that in relation to what we're getting?
Isn't it 7.5?
Again, it depends on the temperature. I've heard of ranges between 7 and 9 parts per million as being kind of the high end. We will typically here have 5 or 6, 7. We try to keep it at 5 or higher, 5 parts per million, 5 milligrams per liter. I think if I have the right figure. So anyway, those good questions. We can talk about. There's a lot of detail that's left out of this, and we'll get into it for who's ever interested in helping to build this and get it running. So I'll just go on to. Okay, so you guys are thinking about the site of your aquaponics system, and so this is a place in India that we were privileged to go to. and they asked us to help them with an aquaponics system. And after going out to a big 5-acre field or something, we redirected them back to their backyard, and they said, well, maybe we should start small. and so this is the area that we're looking at, and we just needed to take into consideration, where the sun, the angle of the sun, what trees might be shading things, and kind of obvious things like that. Was the ground suitable for it? Where was there electricity and water available and easy access and all that kind of thing? So that's there. So here we are into the building process of it. You can see, so we went from here to here, and
Right behind that, in the bottom of the building, is the kitchen.
yeah, right here. Yep. So you can start to see some of the components here. I'll get you a close-up of it, but here's they've laid a foundation, a nice level foundation here for the grow beds. That was an important part of the infrastructure for this. Wouldn't have had to do a cinder block foundation, but they did it.
And that's
that
what
way.
they had,
Yeah.
so they used it.
Yeah. And here we are buying, what are these called? Anybody tell me? The IBCs, right? So we're out there. Of course, they had some blue barrels. We didn't need those for this system, but they had 3 nice IBCs that we loaded up, and here they are after we've cut them and made them into these in the foreground are going to be filled with media, filled with the gravel that you see on Cindy standing on there, and you can see.
The IBCs are going to be filled with media?
Yes, they are.
They're going to be grow beds?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Or if you cut them really short?
Uh-huh. This whole system is made out of 3 IBCs, and there's a 4th bed here in the foreground that you can just barely see the beginning of. So we cut 2 of the IBCs, and again we'll do this. Anybody's interested? We have an IBC, a 300-gallon IBC down here. We're going to cut it. Basically, you cut the middle out of it, and you take the two ends and turn them into grow beds.
We used the middle as the frame for a raised grow bed.
Yeah, I think that was in this picture back there. Isn't it?
No, it was in the picture you just had.
Oh, it's around the edge. Okay. Sorry.
Standing behind.
Oh yeah, this right. Yeah.
That steel thing is holding the beds. Is
Yeah.
that just
Those
they
are the
come like that?
frames.
Yeah,
around
that's the
They
cage.
come like that.
Uh-huh.
They come with a cage.
They come with a cage, and typically they also typically come with a pallet bottom on it, which is nice, sturdy. It fits the bottom perfectly. It supports it. And you can use that as a
They use
support.
those things to transport liquids and things, don't they?
Right. Yeah.
And they come with really nice holes in them that you want. I mean, the valves on them and stuff too.
Yeah.
And they're food grade.
Yeah. Let's see, I
How well
forgot.
do they hold up when they're exposed to weather and sunlight?
Yeah, I don't have any figures on that. They will break down in the UVs, so we typically cover them. But like any plastic, it'll
So we've
break down.
got 3 of them that I've got in mind to use, but they've been sitting for 2 years.
2 years.
So
You have to
I'm not
check
feeling
them out.
confident.
See how brittle they are. If they've been exposed to summer heat for
40-degree
3
temperature.
years, you might want to check it out.
So shading them is a good thing to
Yeah.
do just to make them last a lot longer,
Yeah,
right?
you'll notice the 2 IBCs that we have employed, one down there with a catfish in it, and this one that's at the end of this B thing, they're both covered with shade cloth for that reason. Also, covering it, you can help it. Well, for one thing, it could be more decorative, right? In fact, you want your system to look good if you have one of these. I've heard of people using like a bamboo mat and spray painting designs on that or something and making a nice appearance out of it. Also, you could cover that with some kind of material that would just help to insulate the water and keep the water temperature more even and consistent. Okay, so here's another view of that system from the other side. What do you think these are? Sumps, right. So these are the low point of the system, right? It turned out because the grow beds here, which one of them is not set up right now. A little story behind that. Each one of those grow beds then is going to fill with water, right? And when they drain, they're all going to drain at once because they're linked. So that means a fair volume of water that's going to fluctuate. That's going to drain into the sump. So that's a fair amount of water. We needed these sumps to hold enough volume, have enough volume to be able to hold all the water. One thing though is just remember if you're doing some kind of a flood and drain system in a container that's full of gravel, if say you have a 55-gallon barrel that's filling and draining, it's not going to flood and drain 55 gallons, right? Because it's at least partially full of rock or some media. So typically with this media, we figure it's going to be about half that. So a 100-gallon container full of material is going to flood and drain 50 gallons of water. So it's just something that'll
Could you
help.
just go back to that other picture so I can just get a picture of it?
Sure.
We can send them to you.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
actually,
good.
You'll put
Yeah,
it
we
on
could
Google
put it.
Classroom.
We could put it on the
I still want to
classroom.
get onto that. I've got to quite fast with it.
We're gonna do that.
You take
Yeah, so long story short, we ended up getting 2 of these containers and linking them together at the bottom so that we basically have one larger sump there that can handle.
Did you say you have media in the site?
No.
No, not in the sump. The media will be in these grow beds up here. So we got fish tank, grow beds, and sump. And it's a very simple system, really. There are no clarifiers in this system. It's just, this is the low point, pumping up to the high point. In fact, let me get to the next.
The reason those sumps are yellow barrels like that
Oh.
is just because that's what
Maybe
was
not that one.
available.
You don't know if
We
you
could
know
have
this
used
work.
another IBC or something like that, but that's what they had, so that's what we used.
Yeah.
It's not,
This is an airlift pump, by the way. We put in a well right here, which is just a capped piece. We'll describe this later. But it's just a kind of a large diameter PVC with a cap on the bottom that's sunk in the ground even deeper than the well, enough to provide a deep column of water for the airlift pump to operate in.
get water above the air.
And then here's a good side view of the whole system that shows the whole layout. And again, so obviously this is a low point. We're pumping up through this airlift pump. It's running by gravity. From this point right here, it's all gravity. The air is pushing the water up to this point. Then it's going over, falling into the fish tank. The fish tank fills up, fills up, fills up, stays full, and overflows right here. Okay, and it's falling by gravity down here, and then falling into each one of the grow beds. All right. Then these grow beds fill up until this siphon right here, which you'll understand more about in a little bit. This is an external siphon. Yeah. So here's the external siphon. And the water's going to fill up in these containers till it reaches this point right here. Because this is a drain. This is connected to the drain that connects all of these pipes. Oh, I should say, each one of the grow beds is draining into a pipe that you can't quite see under there, but it comes along like this. And that water, so the water level in this tube is going to mirror the water level in here. When that water level raises up to here, the water overflows and starts a siphon effect down there. Unfortunately, I have this covered up for some reason. I don't know why. But then that water just flows by gravity back into the sump. Do you see that? Very, very simple. Conceptually, it's just 3 components. High point, flows by gravity through the media bed, and then back to the sump.
There's really no moving parts at all.
Yeah. Yeah, the only moving part is this.
Is that
Let's
your
see.
pump?
Yes, this is the air pump that's driving the whole system. Let's see, it's one of this type of air pump, a diaphragm type air pump. We got a fairly big one. I have it written down somewhere. I think it might be either 80 or 100 liter per minute air pump.
But they want to expand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's on top of the, is it another siphon or something on top of the pump? So that's just a pump, isn't it?
This here,
Yeah.
this is a separate air pump that's just for aeration.
Just for aeration.
Yeah, so we have air stones in it. I'm not sure we needed it, but we decided to go that route. We didn't have a dissolved oxygen meter with us or anything, so we erred on the side of caution.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And again, it provides it just provides a little security for it.
Would the bottom of those sumps only be higher than that siphon point?
With the bottom of the pump,
The bottom of the sump where it's pulling the water from only need to be higher than, be lower than the siphon point?
it would need to be lower than the top level of that the water would achieve. Okay. So
Because right there you have it being the lowest, the top of the tank being the lowest, but it's pulling from the bottom of the tanks, isn't it?
One of the reasons we buried them so much is we wanted them to stay cool.
Yeah.
too.
Okay.
It was a temperature issue.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
so the sump, I'm just hesitating at the word pulling. The sump is passive.
Yeah, yeah.
It has, there are other things that are pulling water, but it's not, because the overflow here is this is where the water's coming down. It's open there, it's
Yeah.
just flowing in. So there's no
The air,
connection.
the air pump itself,
Oh,
where it's pulling, where the air pump is pulling the water out, the standpipe, it's not standpipe, but
We're gonna go
Yeah.
through it and pipe it
Yeah.
a little bit and it'll make a lot more sense.
it is connected to the bottom of the sump, so.
So how many litres are your
Here,
sumps?
Actually doesn't have to be.
yeah.
Sorry. How many litres are your sumps? And they bought 3 containers, so you've cut 2.5.
Yeah.
And
yes,
then
correct.
and so how many litres? So those sumps have got to be the same literage of what you can put into the grow beds.
Yeah.
We could have
Well,
put
if
just
you-
another IBC tank down in the.
You could have put another one down. And,
Yeah. It was the same size.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Again.
Yeah. Okay.
They were just taller and those things were squattier and those were available.
We'll talk
Yeah.
about sizing too,
Yeah.
a little bit later in detail, how you figured out that part. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Definitely want enough some space for,
Yeah.
for what you got in there.
Remember, John, the volume of water in the fish tank is going to stay constant.
Yes.
Okay, because it's just overflowing
Yes.
at this point. So it's the sumps are not relative to the size of the water in the fish tank. That's because that amount is going to stay consistent. But it is dependent on the size of the volume of water that these grow beds will hold.
But those grow beds are going to be full of gravel, right?
They're going to be full of
So
gravel.
the amount of water that's actually in the grow beds is actually quite minimal.
Correct. It's going to be about half of what they would hold if there was no rock in there, no gravel in there.
So was that volcanic rock as well, was it?
No, it was kind of a
Just
sharp,
gravel.
Bluestone,
yeah, kind of a sharp edge.
Yeah.
Rock.
Well, that's what I'd be accessing.
Yep.
Yeah, it worked. I'm sorry I didn't find the picture with them a month later and they were growing stuff, but it worked for them. It's hopefully still works.
Yes.
Okay,
So
so
the sump tanks are connected by a pipe?
yes, they are. I don't know.
Is that at the bottom or sort of the middle or?
It's towards the bottom. It's not really visible in this, but it's pretty close to the bottom. That's what he's doing now is
Yeah.
installing the pump in there. But so the two sumps are connected. It doesn't have to be right at the very bottom, but they were pretty low. You definitely want it. So your water's going to fluctuate between this level and that level, right? So as the tanks over here fill up, the higher the water goes in here, the lower the water is going to be in here. So you want your connection obviously to be lower than this lowest level. And then other than that, it wouldn't really matter. Although I would tend to put it just as low as you reasonably could get the bulkhead fittings. When you install your connectors between two tanks are called bulkhead fittings. I guess not. So, well, this is what we used. We used Uniseals. They're an inexpensive neoprene or type of compression type of fitting. You just drill the correct size hole, and shove them in there.
And they'll also deal with if you've got them like on a blue barrel, they'll deal with a little bit of curve too.
Yeah.
They have to go on it very
That's what I'd be
completely
using
flat
for the barrel,
surface.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what they're really made for. They're excellent for a curved surface. They're inexpensive. They do a good job.
But that was just a way of making two barrels into one big barrel. That's all
Yeah.
it was.
And then I was going to say, we also hooked in this well, this capped tube for the pipe and the pipe pump. Like this. We hooked that into here, this container in here. But then again, just needed to be hooked in somewhere below this level.
So what it's like, this is really good. So these are pictures on this one as well, photos. And then the part
And there's an example here of that.
like that.
Is there an example of this?
Yeah.
Yes, on B, that's exactly what we have there.
Excellent.
We have, in our case, there's only one of them, and this is an IBC, as opposed to those yellow water. This is the same exact principle.
But it's an IBC, so
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, and the IBC is great because these have a 2-inch female pipe thread on the valve, so I just came off of that into here. And you can take a look at my solution to how I connected that up. It's not
That's
necessarily the
exciting.
way to do it, but it was one way I can.
It's such an obvious question that my
No,
brain
no,
is
no.
not able to grab that. We went over it this morning, but it's still okay. What is the purpose of the sump? I know it's going to be the lowest point, but what is its purpose?
Okay, it's a collection point for water. Okay, so being the lowest point,
Kind of like a shock absorber, it keeps you from getting too deep or too low inside.
Well, then every
Yeah.
car has a sump, and that's how I've been sort of explaining it to myself. Your oil has to have an extra storage point,
Right.
and so at the bottom of your car is a sump where all your oil goes.
So
Well, that doesn't happen.
So Claire, you know that system that's
I'll
in
just
right
back
there?
off.
The water comes out of the fish tank and fills up the beds. When it fills up the beds, then the water in the fish tank goes down a little bit, right? Because the water is going out of the fish tank into
Yeah.
the beds.
Yeah.
And as the beds fill up, then the water tank goes, then the fish tank goes down,
Yeah.
okay? We don't, and then the water pours back into the fish tank and fills the water back up in the tank, right? So the water fluctuates in that fish
So
tank,
it's, okay, so it's
okay?
balanced.
But if you, if we did that with that thing, that fish tank would almost be drained.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what that does is kind of an
It's
an
a support
intermediary thing.
system to always refill the tank.
It's an intermediary system so the tank can stay consistent. That's
Okay.
the only, the fish tank can stay consistent.
Okay.
That's all it's for.
Thank you.
Yep.
Right, yeah, so fish tank staying consistent, but the sump is pumping into,
What if it's just pumping up and then coming straight back down again? I mean, why does it have to fill it right up? Why couldn't it just be going straight through and back into it,
What is it?
into the fish tank?
Because
So you just go through the media,
Uh-huh,
yeah?
uh-huh.
So the water's pumping up from the fish tank, through the media and straight back in.
Because the media bed, it fills up, it empties.
So, yeah, but it does have to fill up, doesn't it?
Fills up, right.
It can't just drain through the plants and then
Right.
go straight away.
Right.
It's got to fill up, it has to fill up.
Fill up the good stuff, nutrients, and it drops.
No.
It has to have the water, otherwise the water will find just a few trails to go and everything else would stay
Oh, I
dry.
see, yeah, okay.
Water has this bad habit of not cooperating with you.
Yeah.
but maybe made this more complicated.
I think she got it.
Yeah, but you can see these are the two phases. Here's the phase where the grow bed here's a phase where the grow bed is full of water. Maybe it's full of water and media. It doesn't matter. It's full. The grow bed is full of water. So you only need this if you have a flood and drain grow bed.
Yeah.
Right. If this grow bed is just going to stay consistent with water, you don't need this sump. But if you have a grow bed that's going to fill and then drain, this is draining back to here, right? So we're in this phase of the cycle. The pump that's down here has pumped the water. However it gets up there, I should have just made this road bed. Has pumped the water up. Basically, it's ended up here, one way or another.
I think they get it, Terry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
All
you
right.
want, you definitely want the sump going to the grow bed, not to the fish tank, is that right?
So,
No, other way around.
The sump water's going up to the grow bed.
Doesn't matter. It goes to the highest place. The sump
Oh.
goes up to the highest
Oh,
place.
right.
Yeah,
Whether your
whatever
grow bed is the
highest
highest or your fish tank's the
Oh, it
highest.
doesn't matter,
Yeah.
so it's okay for it to go straight into the fish tank.
That's what it does there.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, all of ours go.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
okay. Did I confuse you enough?
Yeah.
You sure? Okay. We can work on it.
It's very technical.
We're making it harder than it is.
I'm making it harder than it is, yeah.
Probably.
Okay, moving right along, talking about components. This is let me show you the next. This is the system that Cindy and I, the first one that we were involved in building. And came out looking nice, huh? In fact, it's kind of extra fancy. It has tiled interior compartments, which I don't recommend. But it was fun and interesting, and it was pretty when we were done.
They had an earthquake and it cracked.
Oh.
The tile cracked,
Yeah,
yeah.
Oh.
But so these are just as well. You tell me what are these? Yeah. What type?
Deep red.
Deep water.
Deep water rafts, right?
Deep water
And there's
rafts.
the actual rafts there, dead giveaway, right? And then what do you think these little blue barrels are?
Bio
Some-
something?
Biofilter.
Yeah, biofilms.
Yeah,
that's
some
what
kind of biofilter or clarifier. Actually, in this case, they're just open, kind of settling tanks, clarifiers. And then this is not filled with media right yet, but they're going to be. So those would be media filled beds. And then you can't see it under here, but this dark area is this. And that fish tank was half of an old septic tank that we found up on the hill and loaded up on the back of a pickup truck and rolled around there. And that,
Why would we have it underneath
Just carrying the fish out. What would we have done today?
underneath the media bed up there?
Because you wanted a challenge trying to
You
make
can, I mean, they're still able to get the fish out, yeah.
shade.
Shade.
Shade
And
is
also, it's in the ground a little bit to try and keep the water cooler so it doesn't get too hot.
You also wanted a challenge trying to net the fish,
And it
right?
was,
Yeah.
well, we had enough space, yeah. It's
Yeah.
always,
yeah, the advantage of having, like on the 4-bin system, the advantage of having it under there is it's easy to drain the water down into it and it shades a little bit. Disadvantage is it makes it harder to get in there. And if I had my druthers, if I had the space, I mean, and it's space efficient, right, is another big advantage. But disadvantage of not being able to get in there easily, to me, is a pretty big disadvantage, having worked with this one for a while. I prefer to have much easier access. We have the same issue with the cement tank on the end of A here. It's, everything's right over the cement tank. We left a little bit hanging out of this side, so we have some access, but it's generally just harder to get in there and catch fish. and
Yeah, the young guy we
do
were gonna
stuff.
throw in there left.
Yeah, right.
Brent.
Yeah.
But Brent worked for Brent, he could fit in there fine, but then he
Yeah.
got married
That's
and
right.
left.
We offered to buy somebody else scuba gear and everything, but
we could have made the legs longer for that, but then at the backside of that is then your pump would have had to pump higher.
yeah.
Yeah.
Everything's a balance, right?
Yeah. Just by the way, it's Tracy Van Veen, Jeff Van Veen. He and Tracy are kind of responsible for us being here. They introduced us to the whole aquaponics thing and to Vernon and Kona, Hawaii, all that. They're awesome.
So that greenhouse or that covering there is just made out of bent
PVC pipe.
Bent
Yep.
PVC, yeah.
And
Just a
then
hoop
down
house.
here are, and down here are, just blocks, it's the cement blocks that go
Yeah.
down.
And this is where we learned this construction technique. By the way, this isn't quite finished, but it has some braces that are missing. But and so these grow beds and this are all the same technique, all the same construction method. The brick wall is an extra that they decided to put around here to hold the hoop house in place. Wasn't necessary, just one way to do it.
Well, it keeps the snakes out too.
Keep snakes out, I suppose.
Where was that at?
Mexico, Tijuana.
Yeah, the Pacific Ocean right
And
there.
the tiles are really nice.
Yeah, aren't they?
Yeah, lovely.
I know.
Shame.
Yeah, I
Shame.
just want to use it for a spa or something. So, okay, well this was kind of the same thing a little earlier in the construction phase. See some detail. Well,
So what's that red stuff? Is that
It's called Red Guard, and instead of putting a plastic liner in there, we put this, painted on this thick plastic, rubberized kind of sealant.
Would you recommend it?
Would I recommend it?
It's expensive.
No, not if you could do a liner.
Yeah, right.
We use it for like shower beds instead of like a hot tar.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
yeah.
It's a common underlay and under tile for
Yeah.
like shower.
Okay, yeah, which is what we,
So when you build a shower in a house, it's a common structural thing. Red guard or hot tar. They make a hot tar mop bath to make it watertight.
Why did you choose 3 beds in that case? Because that makes a lot of floating additions, no?
3-bed,
You build the upper one and then the 2 floating
Uh-huh.
rack beds.
Good, well, good question. In this case, the media bed here is going to again provide us excellent biofiltration for the whole system. It's full of gravel. Great home for the beneficial bacteria.
So you use it at the same time.
Uh-huh.
It's supposed to grow and you can do biofiltration.
Yes,
Actually.
right. It's that
The
dual
media bed
purpose
and
for that.
And the rest system. And that was the footprint that they gave us, that was trying to maximize as much grow space as we could.
Yeah. The size of these beds is also somewhat determined by the size of the sheet of plywood. These are 16 foot long, right? I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So two sheets of plywood for the bottom, and as it comes out, I think Jeff had it figured so that you could just really efficiently use the wood as it's sold.
But there's a fair bit of investment though in there, right? Economically, like you're buying the red paint stuff, you're
Yeah.
buying the plywood and all that sort of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So how much would that cost, and would you build such a unit?
Yeah, I mean, we got a lot of time.
Someone jobs around with each other. Don't do anything like shipping Australia.
Uh-huh.
Leave their shit, they just might go.
A lot of times, one of the most expensive things is a tank, and the water tank. We got that for free.
Yeah.
The red guard was unnecessary.
The red
Probably
guard.
the biggest complaint about that system is there's no way to work on the outside of the beds.
Well, that's.
Oh, because of
On the outside edge.
So if you had to be sure to have a working space for people to be on the outside, so you don't have to reach all the way over.
With this hoop on there, yeah.
So in some ways,
But it
a
is-
smaller width of the float bed would be better.
Well, on this footprint, yeah, maybe.
Well, I mean, you don't want to kill yourself just because you've got a small footprint.
And you have long arms.
What are you
Yeah.
covering that with? Are you covering that with shade cloth? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have been.
No, they covered it with plastic. Yeah.
Plastic. Was it what does the fish? I'm worried about the fish. Muffins are dry. It's all up there.
But 4 feet I think is pretty practical.
It's doable.
Yeah, it's doable.
You do.
Speak for yourself.
Especially if you can get at it from both sides.
Well, you get from both
Yeah.
sides, yes, right, but not if you can't.
Okay.
So they could
I
have
apologize.
made that. I mean, they could have easily just made that a bit wider on the outside.
Yeah.
It still had the
Yeah.
hoops.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or open
That's
the
something you wanna
flaps,
think
either
about.
side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things we've found here is if our 4 grow beds are in like 2 sets of 2, if they're a little bit further apart,
Yeah.
so you could get down between the 2, that would make life so much easier.
It sure would have. Yeah.
I've had to lose weight to be able to work in between them.
Oh, that's a good idea then.
Yeah.
Good motivation.
Definitely would be easier. That is an important thing to consider in your system. It's just access to it.
And height.
Height.
Yeah, the difference down the bottom can be that sometimes you feel like you're just a shorty, then up the top you're always bending over.
Yeah.
So those cinder blocks are not holding this tank up.
If we had it to do over,
There,
guys,
hold on.
mask all that PVC.
So, but back to your question about the expense of it, depending on the cost of these type of materials, you know, 2x4 is relatively inexpensive, so that instead of using 4x4s and larger dimension lumber, but
You don't remember how much it cost, though?
I don't.
Yeah. If we had it to do over, we'd probably turn around and go beds the other way. We might anyway, so they work with the slope instead of down the slope. Then they'd all be the
Constant
same height.
height.
Yeah, at least that'd be a consideration.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we should go ahead and get to the bell siphons pretty quick.
Yeah,
Then we
okay.
have about an hour left.